All right, so expecting that everyone is here in the class already. So today we'll be looking up upon the next portion of the chapter. So we had discussed in detail about the three sectors of the economy: primary sector, tertiary sector, and the secondary sector. So in the last class, we also took up the portion where we were talking about the problems that had come up in the agricultural sector. So what were the problems? That there was underemployment over there, and when we are talking of the problem, we also have to find the solution for it. So basically, to look out for the ways out for here, because in the agriculture sector and even in the urban sector, we see a problem over there. And what is the problem? It's the underemployment, or we can say disguised unemployment can be visualized in the scenario. So when we have a problem, we need to look out for a way out. So that's going to happen when the government will take up some steps to take care of the situation. So today we'll look into the portion where we will see how the problem of unemployment can be taken care of in both the rural as well as in the urban areas. Just to recall our previous context that we were talking about, that we were seeing that how the difference was there in the GDP contribution and the employment of the different sectors. When we talked about the primary sector, we could see that from the data, it was showing us that the GDP contribution of the primary sector has kept on decreasing over the time, whereas the employment is still high. So what could be the reason for that? We were trying to say that the reason was that people are having family labor employed in the primary sector, and they were disguisedly unemployed over here. And in the tertiary sector, over the period of time, we could see that the production was increasing for the tertiary sector. So the GDP contribution was more, whereas the employment level is still very low over there. And that could be a reason that people are not skilled enough to take up the jobs in the tertiary sector. Because in tertiary sector, we could see that a lot of skill is required for the high end jobs. But for the lower end, we could see more people over here. Lower end would include, say, the repair person, transport people who are taking care of all those things. These are the services which require very less skills. Say the delivery person. So they are also in the service, but then they are not able to have skill enough that they can take up the high paid jobs in the tertiary sector. So when the problem is there of disguised unemployment in the primary sector and also in the urban areas also, so we have to look out for the solution for it. So the solution comes in where the government has to take a major step over here. Okay. Now there are some ways in which the government has to step in and take some major decision. We want the government to step in first of all. That's because it is involving some welfare purpose. That's why the government has to take in their steps here. So the first thing would be diversification of agriculture. And D here, the letter represent will be easier for you to understand that this is the key letters that you can use to memorize your pointers. So diversification would mean that in a land where you're doing only your agriculture, the people might be employed only during the harvest season, right? But what about the other part of the year when they are unemployed? So they could have, say, horticulture, or they could have animal husbandry on their farms, or even some other way outs by which they are utilizing the land which is available to them. So in that way, you're going to diversify the agriculture. And what would you require for this? The government would probably provide you better schemes or some kind of an investment procedure by which you could diversify the agriculture. Second point, cheap credit. Okay, what about cheap credit? Like when we are talking about setting up of the agricultural base, the farmers are pretty poor. If we see the proportion of the farmers in India, they are in the rural areas and they require a lot of capital to start the process of investment or the agriculture. So in that case, they are unable to buy the HYVCs or the better quality of the fertilizers and all. So that's why there comes the role of the cheaper credit. Where do the farmers generally go to get the credit from? So if they're in the rural areas, they'll be probably going to the money lenders, where they have to pay a high rate of interest to them. And again, they are falling into the cycle of debt trap. To come out from that debt trap, you will have to probably seek the help from the banks. But if you go to the banks, you are a farmer who does not have much money. You cannot show anything as a collateral to them. So what is a collateral? You say that you're going to keep this asset with the bank, and the bank can lend you on that behalf. Say it could be a gold ornament or your the papers of your land. So you're keeping that with the bank as a guarantee. But the poor farmers, they do not have all these papers or all these documents. So they are unable to get the credit from the bank, and the banks lend it at a cheaper rate of interest. So now you could relate it to the schemes that the government has started for the farmers, right? We are aiming at having a doubling of the farmers' income. That is the vision of the current government. So they are planning to do that by providing cheap credit to them, so that if they are getting the credit available, then they can improve their agricultural system. Okay. Third one says that providing some better infrastructure. Now, what happens is that when you are producing, you will have to also go to the market to sell the product. To reach the market, you would require your infrastructure. Okay. So one thing here is the building up of the infrastructure. So when you're building up, say, the roads, what would happen? You would require people in the transportation sector. So then people would get employment in the transportation sector. So that is another way out, that you could use the labor which is excess on the lands. They could be utilized in the transportation sector. Acha. Apart from the transportation sector, if you are having a surplus produce, what would you do? You will tend to store it. You will keep some of the product for your consumption, your family consumption, and then rest of it would be stored for sale in the market. But everything does not go to the market all in a truck, right? You will have to store it for some duration of time. And for storing, you would require the storage facilities, and that is also again an infrastructure facility where people can get employment, right? So these are the ways in which the infrastructure facilities can be built up. People would get more employment. Those people who were disguisedly unemployed on the farms, they could be now being getting the employment in these kind of sectors. Also, imagine that the government is building up new canals. Okay, who's going to do that? So you tend to take up the people who are unemployed or underemployed in the rural and the urban areas for the building up of such kind of infrastructure projects. And again, building up that canal is going to indirectly going to help you with your employment, and directly in the primary sector's production also, because the farm would get better irrigation facilities. So you can see how the linkages are happening, and there are so many ways out for the development of the primary sector. So you can grow out of your the very basic the farming procedures that you're doing. You could have better infrastructure where people could get more employment also. So apart from cheap credit, diversification of agriculture, building up the infrastructure, there could also be some local industries. So the vegetable industries are there in the rural areas that would be enhanced. So if you like increase the process of cold storage or making some better mandis, you could see more people being employed over there. And that's something called as a balanced regional growth. Now, if you can recall, Nano was trying to open up industry. It's the production center. It had a plan to open up its production center in West Bengal. But then the government in West Bengal at that point of time said a clear no to them, right? But if you see the other areas, like if you have industries in Noida, Ghaziabad, you see the majority of the industries in these areas. Why do you think so? Because the government gives them some benefits, right? To go to those areas where people are unemployed, or the areas are underdeveloped, and the industry is setting up over those areas. If you go to even Panipat, Sonipat, you see a lot of industries, and also housing sectors coming up, because people are working in those industries. They would need the housing areas to live in those areas. So that is going to lead to the regional growth of those backward areas. So, in a way, I could suggest that, not opening up the nano industry in West Bengal was probably a very bad idea for the West Bengal government, because they could have got a lot of employment facility over there. But yes, the outcome was that they had to let go a lot of farmland to the nano industry. So that's a debate that they were held up in. So what is the idea over here is that people, when they are underemployed or they are disguisingly unemployed, they can be employed in some industries apart from that of the agriculture sector. And if you encourage more industries to come up in the rural areas, that would lead to a balanced regional growth, because you would see the industries being coming up in the mega cities. You can see more of MNCs and all, but you don't see that coming up in the rural areas. To enhance the prospects of the rural areas, to increase their development, the government could frame policies so that the industries are set up in these areas also. Some of the regional crafts industries are there. So for example, if you go to the eastern side, you can see how they are using the bamboo to create different items, or the jute is there in the eastern part of India, which has been utilized for making the jute bags and everything. So the regional crafts is there which can be developed, and that would lead to better employment of the people over there. So it's not necessary that people are only employed in the agriculture sector or in the infrastructure of the agriculture sector, but they could have their own regional industries in which that could be flourished. When you go to Kashmir, they are famous for their crafts work over there. But if you see people are not going there, if the tourism is not happening in JNK and there's a lot of terrorism, do you think their craft industry would get a potential to grow? Probably not. So the government policies play a very important role in such kind of steps to improve the growth of the primary sector. So you could have the industries being located in the semi-rural areas. So in your NCRT, you could see how the dal mill has been set up is an example of how they are improving the employment in the rural areas. How we can start a honey collection center. So a small scale industry can be started up because you're getting a farm produce, and that could be again used as a diversification of agriculture. So these are the few ways by which you could increase the employment in the primary sector. Now, what is the main thing to note over here is that all these points, they are backed with the right to work and Manrega. So Manrega is one scheme of the government that we'll be talking about in details in the next slides. So we talked about till now about the rural areas. When we come to the urban areas, it's been noticed that there is a lot of education over here, but then I had introduced the topic of uh, you know jobless growth happening in our country. So that's probably because people are getting education, but of not that level that their quality is increasing or their skills are being developing. So we do not see that there is adequate number of increase in the jobs in the urban areas. So we see a lot of educated unemployment. People have education, they have the knowledge, but then even with the degrees, they are not able to get jobs. So the government, they did research, and it was a done research by the Planning Commission, who said that there could be 20 lakhs job which could be created in the education sector itself. So in the education sector, you would require as people as the teachers being employed, the management staffs, the people who would be taking care of the school, the caretakers and all. So there's a lot of jobs that could be created in the education sector. So if we build up our schools, our universities, that would give a lot of employment, especially to those who are actually the educated ones. Number two, we talk about the health sector. So health sector means if we are developing more of hospitals, right? If the government is investing in the building up of the health infrastructure of the country, you will see that more of doctors, nurses, the health workers, they'll be able to get jobs. And by health sector, we do not really mean that it should be only in the urban areas, but they should be also be developed equally in the rural areas, right? And thirdly, we talk about the potential sectors growth. So the potential sector means every state or every region would have its own kind of craft industry that they are very well off for. For example, I gave you the example of Jammu Kashmir. So they are very well known for the craft industry over there, about their work of how they are doing the carpet weaving or anything else. So that is a potential that they have which needs a push. And who's going to give this kind of an investment opportunity? It's the government. So if they frame a policy whereby they are promoting the craft of a particular sector, that will lead to the growth of the sector. So there again is a study by the Planning Commission where they said that if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 5 lakh people. So tourism plays a very important role in few major areas. Think about Jammu Kashmir, think about your hill stations, think about Kerala, Goa. All these are such great, tourism sectors, the tourism industries. And you can imagine how this tourism industry has been affected in these COVID-19 times. There are people who are living their lives only on being employed in the tourism sector. They are probably tourist guides, or they are having their own hotels which are completely shut down in current times. So you can well imagine the effect of this pandemic on such kind of people. So coming back to the topic, the ways that you can increase the opportunities, the employment opportunities in urban areas is through creating more jobs in the education sector. Number two, in the health sector. And thirdly, by promoting the regional industries. So these were the two different scenarios, the rural and the urban areas, where you were increasing the employment opportunities from moving away from the primary sector to any other kind of sectors. So here we have another important policy of the government of India. It's called the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, or in short we call it as the Manrega. This was actually given out in the year 2005. So it was an act which was being taken up by the our constitution, and we got the Manrega Act in the year 2005, according to which the government thought that it is as a right to work. Okay, so the Manrega scheme is actually acting as a right to work. That means that you are going to give all the unemployed people the right to take up a job and get their basic livelihood needs. So it was a right to work because people got 100 days guaranteed employment. So all around the year, they were having minimum 100 days to work on. So all those unemployed people who are not able to get any kind of employment, they would get 100 days of work by the government of India. And it was given to only those who were willing and able to work. Now, suppose you are sitting at your home and you feel like not working. I will not attend my class. And then nobody can probably force you for that. Not even your parents, not even your teachers. But that's your individuality. Similarly, if you say that you don't want to work, nobody is responsible to make you work, right? The government can be focusing on those people who are in actual need for a job and they are willing to work. For those who are unwilling to work, it will be a wastage of the government money to invest such of the taxpayers' money into the such kind of schemes. So the scheme focuses of 100 days employment to the people who are willing and able to work. So once they are giving such kind of employment, it would be those kind of employment work where you're going to increase the production from the land. It could be building up a canal, building up any kind of infrastructure. So such kind of work were given to the Manrega people who were coming under the scheme. Also, there could be situations where all the people who are willing to work and they are in need for work, they are not able to get the work under the Manrega scheme. So then the government had a way out for them also. So they said that we'll be giving some unemployment allowances. What does that mean? So unemployment allowances means that people who we are not able to give the job to, we will give them some money so that at least they are able to get their basic 2 square meals a day. So this was the very basic of the Manrega scheme when they had started off in 2005. It was around in 200 initial districts that it had been started, but now it's more than 625 districts in India that it has spread to. And it is called a right to work because the government is giving the rights to every citizen who is unemployed in the rural areas to get the employment. But then if we start analyzing the Manrega scheme, in the current times, the Manrega scheme is actually going through a lot of challenges. So if you just read the question here, it says that is Manrega actually giving you a regular job or a casual job? So think about it. Is it a full-time employment for the people who are employed in the Manrega scheme? No, it's not. It's only 100 days of guaranteed employment. So what about the other part of the year? So they'll have to do their savings and then they have to take care of their livelihood in those periods, right? Also, if you just analyze the data which is given here, this is the Times of India article that I'm sharing with you. Um, it talks about the fact that the budget which has been given up by the government for Manrega scheme, it has been increasing over the time. So the government is allocating a lot of money, the taxpayers' money for the Manrega scheme. But the challenge is that we are not actually utilizing all that money. We are not giving those money, in the process of giving the job to the people. The wages have gone increasing for the people. So average days was like around 200 rupees, like they were getting per person per day, and it has been keeping on decreasing over the time. So you can see by 2016-17 they were earning around 161.65 paise on an average. So the wages were around 200 initially, but then over the period of time the wages have kept on decreasing for the Manrega people. And the economists, they try to feel that it's the migrant workers are keeping on increasing. So when I talk of the migrant workers, you can also connect to the point that how a large number of migrant workers, they were transferring, they were leaving Mumbai, Maharashtra, and they were coming back to their own state of Gujarat, and they were forcefully coming, making their way from Mumbai to Gujarat in these pandemic times. So that's because they cannot attain that livelihood. They were only getting a casual job over there, right? Now, such that the Manrega scheme is not probably functioning and they're not into such kind of employment opportunities, they will not be able to get the employment. And hence, surviving in the areas like Mumbai or Delhi, these migrant workers cannot survive. So they are willing to go back to their own rural areas. But can you imagine what would be the consequence of this? Migrant workers going back to their own villages, they are going to create more pressure on the land, which is again a natural resource already limited, and we already have less productivity coming out from our agriculture sector. So then what is the way out for such kind of a scenario? That the government would probably need to find more money going up into the Manrega scheme, right? And we would require more jobs coming up. The manufacturing sector could be boosted so that people could get more employment there. The rural infrastructure that needs a exponential increase. We need to increase the infrastructure so that people can get more employment in the other areas. So this is the challenge that Manrega is currently facing. It's a scheme which has given a lot of opportunity to people, but you can see the impact of coronavirus and in this lockdown period, how it's going to impact the people, right, who are employed with the Manrega scheme. So this was an addition. The critical analysis of Manrega scheme was just an addition to what you are having in your NCERT books. And I hope you will be able to now understand how to create a reflection. So reflection is what you think. And the articles are just going to boost up your economic knowledge. So kindly keep doing the reflection videos that has been given to you. I'm going to now leave you with some questions. Give a thought about it, what we have learned today. So the first question talks about how to identify the short-term measures taken up by the government of India to tackle the problem of unemployment in urban areas. So there were 3 ways by which the urban areas unemployment problem could be resolved. So you can pen down those 3 pointers over here. Number 2, describe any 5 long-term measures that can be introduced to create more employment in rural India. So rural India, you're having the agriculture sector. Think of the ways in which you can take out the excess people employed in the agriculture sector and how you could give them employment in the other areas. So 5 pointers about that. And lastly, the question on Manrega, that why do you think Manrega 2005 is referred to as a right to work? So why is it a right to work by the government? So again, a 3-marker question that you can be asked. And all these are the questions from the board pattern. So you should definitely pen down the answers into your notebook, right? So I hope you were able to understand the concept. So thank you for listening to the explanation.